2023-19 R/M Planning and Zoning Commission zoning text amendment for complete rewrite of the zoning regulations and map amendment for complete rezoning of the entire city.
In the second half of this memo had to do with the EVTZ point system. So we sent out a modified version of the point system just to kind of, and I think overall what the modifications do is we tried to add a few more items to, to fit into the mix, some of them related to sustainability, some not. But I think what it does is tightens up the point system, because there were items that you could obtain points for now that we're saying are required to be within that. And I think that was a criticism we heard through the two applications that you did see in East Norwalk, that why is somebody getting points for these, like the outlets and the heated, the different seating things, those should be mixed in and required as part of that. So we did remove those. I'm happy just to scroll down through, and we can stop at any point in time and talk about any one of the particular items. But however you guys want to proceed is fine with me.
Steve, I have a couple of suggestions. One is that maybe we consider requiring more points. In other words, raising the bar some. And number two, reducing some of the points. Again, raising the bar for people to achieve the additional height on the building. And I have some suggestions regarding those. For example, on the solar, I had a maximum of just 3 points.
Yeah, hold on. Let me probably give me just a sec to
Okay.
There. Yeah. Does it make sense, maybe, Mr. Chairman, to start at the beginning and just work down through the table?
Yeah, probably, in case other people have specific recommendations as well.
Okay. Sorry if I'm scrolling very rapidly.
It's okay.
And again, so changes are in
Steve, I'm trying to sort of control F through all the feedback we've received on the rewrite and the letters, but particularly, well, I guess in general, and since you put out this memo with the proposed revision a couple weeks ago, have we received any comments from anybody, feedback online or letters with thoughts on these revisions or how to change them?
Yeah, the only one we got was, I got it late this afternoon. I haven't even opened the email yet from ENNA. I'll forward that on tomorrow. I haven't looked at it yet.
Oh, we did get, okay.
Okay, Steve, on the first item, the shaded public seating, my suggestion is to reduce that from 3 points to 2 points.
Is that quantified anywhere? How much? Maybe it's in that footnote 7, but I can't see what the quantity is.
Yeah, is it 1 seat? Is it 10 seats?
Right.
It says all seating.
But how many seats do they need to provide to get the 2 or 3 points?
And again, it doesn't state that. Keep in mind, this is a special permit application, so you guys are looking at each one of these criteria and saying, no, this is not consistent with what we deem acceptable or not deem acceptable.
So we could do 1 seat, but also they could propose 30 seats, and we could say that's not acceptable.
Right, because it's all going to vary on the project too, because you're not if you're dealing with a 10,000 square foot lot versus a 50,000 square foot lot, the area of seating and area of amenity space is going to be different.
I see. And so in the case that they do provide 30 spots, we could even come back and say, we feel this is worth 2 points or 1 point. Is that right? This is just a maximum that's provided here.
Correct.
This is a little funny to me because there's a north side of a building mostly. Most buildings would have a north side, I would imagine, or out of the sun, and that would be naturally shaded. If you had a bench on the north side of a building, it would only get sun for 20 minutes in the morning, maybe 20 minutes in the afternoon in the summer, because of the sun angles. But you would almost always want your outdoor seating shaded, and that to get points for that, just to me, all of this is too ambiguous, and I would assume that everybody should shade their public seating anyway in a public space with trees, for instance. I don't see the appropriateness of adding points for this at all. How's that to shake things up?
I agree with you, Mike.
I do too.
Evening, Tammy.
So I understand the argument to not provide points for what people should already do. But then I would just think that then we need to explicitly require it shaded public seating, because as we've seen, people tend not to do it if it's not required.
Well, that's when the special permit kicks in, where we can make it a condition.
Okay, so it's not required. It's not part of the bonus
getting
points amenity, but we would add it as a condition to pretty much all applications.
Well, I think most landscape architects who are going to be working, not always, but usually there's a landscape architect on a bigger project is going to naturally add seating that's going to be shaded from the hot sun. And, and it's almost a given nowadays, especially with the hotter temperatures. So I don't see that it's a point. It should even be in the point system. Because I don't recall a plaza or an outdoor public space ever coming in without trees recently. I just can't even think of one that came in, because it would be a pretty inhospitable space, I think.
I don't know if I'm just not in a trusting mood. I don't know why that's sitting with me funny, but I will lean towards trusting you.
Yeah, if a well-designed public space is going to definitely have shade available, and is what I'm trying to say. It's almost it would be an aberration to design a space without any trees or shade structures in it that's meant for public use. It just doesn't seem it doesn't seem like something that would earn points.
Steve Clocky, you have your hand raised.
You're muted.
Not exactly on this topic. Would you guys mind if I excuse myself for the evening, or would you?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, I wasn't sure. But this is just parting words. Is that I really commend you guys for taking this, or you folks for taking this on, and it needed to be done, and I think you're doing a really wonderful job with it. And I'll speak for myself and the Conservation Commission to say that we really appreciate you engaging us, and look forward to helping as you come up with something that's going to be really, really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And the elected leaders, mayor last night said, we want to be the greenest city in Connecticut. So I think this is all on the right track here.
Good.
Thank you for being a part of that.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Despite Mike's comments, I tend to agree with Anna that if we don't either incentivize it or make it a requirement, it may very well not happen. So I'm in favor either of requiring the shaded seating or of incentivizing it with some points. And I'm not wedded to either of those two.
Yeah, I think how Mike said it earlier was, if they come in and they have a north facing wall or whatever, and it's going to be naturally shaded, you can say this does not count as points and, come up with something else.
There's no requirement for them to put in a plaza, is there?
That-
In the first place?
No, they don't have to.
Yeah, so, if they have but shaded public seating, even along the side of the building, like there's this illustration of the trees and the sidewalk, etc. You could put shaded public, I don't know.
You got to think about the area we're talking about too, because it's East Avenue. So if this is in the front of the building, could be on the east side of the street. It's very possible that it's going to be westward facing. So that's afternoon sun.
Well, and also, the shaded public seating would be just to play devil's advocate here, would be an amenity that would be appropriate in Arizona or Southern California or some hot anywhere in the South. But, there's times where you want to sit in the sun, and, so we call it the shoulder seasons in our profession. It'd be our early spring or late fall on a warm day, but it might be 50 degrees, but it seems like a warm day. You want to sit out, you want to be in the sun. You may not want a shade structure over, there's times where you do want to sit in the sun in the winter. So this all seems very ambiguous to me. That's all. It just seems like if we're going to have if it's going to be a well-designed space, it shouldn't be earning points for density.
Tammy?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I couldn't get here at the 7 o'clock. Just thinking about a couple of projects in Norwalk, for example, the big building at Washington Street that had the redevelopment agency replace the park that was there. And Mike was on the planning commission when we discussed this multiple times. So you have a big grassy area there. They did plant a few trees, and then there is seating. There are some sort of benches there. I can't say I've ever stopped and sat down there, but does that space achieve what we're trying to achieve here in the East Avenue Village District? Or think about the big apartment building that on West and Maple, they have a little public realm space. Is there space for a bench, seating? Does it have to be covered? I kind of feel like if the thing that we should suggest or mandate is that the development plant trees, because a table with an umbrella, you're not going to have a bench with an umbrella. Who's going to sort of manage those accoutrements? A restaurant that has sidewalk space certainly would want to have an umbrella because their patrons would want to sit at the restaurant and be in the shade while they're having lunch. So I kind of think the wording ought to be for trees and not for shaded public seating. It takes a while for trees to grow, but I just feel that it might be more the goal.
There is a requirement for that down later on in one of the other criteria.
Okay. So maybe we pick it up there instead of right here.
All one for me. Oh.
Yeah, the Brim and Crown in East Norwalk has, obviously prior to the EVTZ, they have plenty of shaded, they have plenty of trees in that plaza they created. It feels like Brooklyn there. It's real, and I say that as a compliment. I mean, it feels, it's a very cool urban space that they created in the back there, and I encourage anybody who hasn't been back there. It's by the pizza place, Magic Hat or whatever it's called. But it has that whole vibe there is really great. And all of the design details, and it includes seating and trees. And I just feel like that's all something that we should expect to be done and not to earn any points for. That's all. That's how I
It
feel.
sounds like there's sort of consensus for shaded public seating not being an amenity bonus for density. And the question is whether it's just required for the zone that any public seating be adequately shaded. And adequately is where the discretion comes in. Or whether you leave it out and you trust the developers and their landscapers to do what seems to make sense.
Well, and to say all seating, again, you want that bench for winter warmth. You want to sit in the sun.
Right,
And
that's where the word adequately comes in.
Yeah.
Does a lot of work.
Or 50% seating. But anyway, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around getting points.
The
for
leads would be
something that comes naturally to me whenever I see a public space, and you want.
I haven't heard anybody arguing that they should get points.
You see, is that the consensus so we could move on?
It seems like it.
All right. Next one was sidewalk width. Basically, we just come in with didn't really change the points at all. We just dropped it down. If you did an 8-foot sidewalk, you can only get 1 point. And if you did a 10-foot, you get 2. So right now the standard is 2 points for 10. So we provided just a tier to that. Doesn't really impact the totals or the math at all.
The minimum required 6 feet, right?
5,
I want to say,
unless the EVTZ design guidelines are 6.
yeah.
Usually elsewhere it's 5, but
Okay, so
5-foot minimum around the city for sure.
So 1 point for 8 is not too many points. It's also a maximum point. So
right, and it kind of gives so before it was 10 feet are desired. So it's like if someone came in with an 8-foot sidewalk, what do you do? Do you give them 2 points or do you not? So now at least it's like you have a
Yep.
minimum.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions on this. Sorry to slow us down.
No, that's good. Next one, public art. It says something where I changed the shall to may. You may send it to the Arts Commission if you felt that you wanted comment or additional input, just not requiring you to do so. Don't think there's much there. Next one is we added in bike racks, so you get a point for adding a bike rack that's consistent with the EVTZ design guidelines. So that would be the fish one right there. So if someone puts one of those on your site, you can give them a point for that.
Is it max of 1 or 2, or do we need to specify?
We did not, but we can.
So something to consider. I don't know if I was in plate game by putting 13 bike racks. But
I read that as 1 point no matter how many bike racks you put in, not per bike rack is how I was reading that.
Let me just scroll up quick. Hold on 1 sec. Yeah, total maximum points available. So yeah, it's 1. They could put 10 bike racks and they're only getting 1 point.
super.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying good. That's all. Sorry.
One thing I was thinking of, and I don't know if it's a good idea, is combining these two and making it like an or, and then allowing up to 2 points. I don't know if that makes sense. I also like them separate. I don't know if anybody has any strong opinions on that.
I should point out for the bike repair station, I need to credit somebody for that photo. So if we do end up using it, I'll end up having to credit that photo.
All right, I'm good with keeping as it is. Never mind.
Okay, moving on.
What about the bike rack? Can be a bike rack for 2 bikes or 20 bikes. One rack can be quite big. So do we want to say bicycle racks minimum for 5 bikes?
Yep, that's easy enough.
Yeah, I've seen bike racks for just 1 bike.
Can we make that minimum number 10?
That might be tight on certain spaces, though. That's the only thing I want to.
Okay, I just think of it being like 5 bars and a bike could be locked up on either side of the bar.
How about appropriate sized? It kind of is vague, but might go. If you have an apartment building that has 100 units, it's going to be a different size bike rack than if you have one that only has 40 units.
The new regulations do require bike parking as well. So this would be like if you live within that, they're going to have to provide some bikes parking or bike storage within the development. This would be for public use. And they have to be in the
Sorry,
rack.
Steve. I see what you mean. Yep. Sorry. I was thinking public. Sorry.
Yeah.
Would you want to say public, the word public in front of bicycle rack? Or is this in language?
I think you put it in your
No, we could put public in front of it. That probably makes sense. Do you want to consider putting public in front of the repair station too?
Yes.
Yep.
This is where, and this is one where this is where we tweak the regulation to remove some of the extra points that they could get. I'm sorry, it all doesn't fit on the one page, but basically you could get points for, and I'll just scroll down, we can go back up, but you could get points for, excuse me, sorry, the way I structured it here. You could get points for these items here. And this came up to, as I mentioned, during the 2 East Norwalk applications, you could get a point for a water filling station, Wi-Fi, powered seating, or the junction box. So what we said is you don't get points for those anymore. But you have to, depending on the size of your plaza, you have to put in the features that are required based on the size.
Clever.
Yeah, and we tried to make it consistent between the covered one and the outdoor plaza.
So wait, the plaza now requires the Wi-Fi and the water bottle and the et cetera. Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Yes, and that's down
Can you
to,
show us where that is?
Yep, right here.
Oh, they contain 2 features of the below or all 4. Okay, great. Gotcha.
Is this going to prevent developers from wanting to put in plazas greater than 2,000 square feet? Are we going to see a lot of like 1,999 square foot plazas?
Well, that goes back to they've still got to achieve their total points. So they may not have a choice in that. They, depending on how their site's configured. Again, that comes down to the actual configuration and how large the site is, and then your discretion in terms of the special permit, whether you think something they propose is adequate or inadequate.
Thanks.
Steve, this is another one where I thought the points could be lowered from 7 to 5.
The only thing I would counter with that is, since we require the other items to be in that, but again, it's at your discretion, however you want. Again, and also this is, it's not a perfect science we're working with here. It's kind of a little bit subjective in terms of 6 points, 7 points, 5 points.
Again, my feeling is if they want that bonus, they're going to do these things. So why not get as much from these developers and developments as we can for the community?
Steve, can you scroll down a little bit? I just wanted to. Yeah, so if it's 1 point, I mean, technically, if we're doing math, if 1 point per 500 square feet and the max size is 5,000 square feet, it should be a maximum of 10 points technically that they could get for it. But if those wanted to align.
Yeah. So if the commission agrees with me, we'd have to adjust those numbers. I'd like to hear from others about that. If you're comfortable with the 7, this isn't an issue worth a big fight, but if you agree with me, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, let's see how it turns out going your way. Because I think it would be important at the end to see what it's actually going to take to get to the 13 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
might
then
as
the only
well.
thing I think is with number 5 is then do we reduce the max size down to 3,500 square feet?
Mhm.
Oh, change 5 to 3,500.
Yeah. I mean, it's saying
Yeah.
you could do a bigger one, but you're only going to get points up to 3,500 square feet.
Yeah, plazas bigger than that are really getting. They're really getting really. I don't want to say too big, but they're getting really less urban and more. A big windswept space is not always a good thing. Necessarily, it begins to feel like a parking lot.
Mike, can you tell us how big the plaza in front of the building on Washington Street is? For point of
gosh,
reference?
well, I would say the gravel area. I mean, the overall, it's got to be 250. I'm guessing 250 feet, maybe. It's total guess by 200. So what is that? 50,000.
Yeah, so that's like way
It might be
bigger.
it's over an acre.
It's
at
an
least.
acre.
Yeah,
That's bigger than the amenity space up on the Merit 7, up on the, new things going in there. So where do we find these other spaces in Norwalk? Especially in East Norwalk.
Let's say that the gravel area, which is where that fountain was. Do you remember Fran hated that space, but it's getting a lot of use. And I just want to say for the Halloween night fair on October 28th, it was Saturday night, there were thousands of people in that space. It was great to see the park utilized, and people were using it exactly the way Eric Rains had designed it for. And I saw Eric yesterday and said, did you see that event? Because it had the big stage in the middle on the paving, and the space was full, and people were dancing on the grass, and then people were sitting on all the furniture. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's very well designed space, and because it's adaptable for all kinds of events. But anyway, that gravel area, I would say, is more like 100 by 100. So that's 10,000 square feet. It's about 10,000 square feet. That area where the fountain is. And again, these are just guesses, but just so you can get an idea, the area I'm talking about. It's
right. It just gives us a little perspective on, there aren't that many spaces like that in East Norwalk.
No,
there aren't any.
Yeah, but going over I think 3,500 square feet might be a better, and then that sticks with the 7 points, because you'd have to go up to 10 points if we're going to keep this, because you got to make just the math work.
Well, again,
that's not going any lower than the 7 that you want or suggested, Lou. But Brian just brought up that these numbers don't match, or Steve did.
well, again, I think the numbers are fungible. I'm not concerned about that. But if you want to stick with, as a group, you want to stick with the 7 points, then let's just move on to the next item. It's already almost 7:40, and we've still got work to do.
Well, I think they need some clarity on the 5,000 versus 3,500 maximum. I would say make it 3,500.
Yeah, that seems to make sense just from the math.
Yeah, the item, it's if you scroll up, you'll see it. It's there it is, number 5. Isn't that correct? You want to make number 5 3,500. So anyway.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
And again, this is what we deleted out as eligible points. This language in the middle on the net zero building probably have to mimic what we just talked about when we were talking about the
right
who can say it's certifiable versus built that way. So I think we'd probably just tweak this language a little bit to match up with that. But this was a new concept that kind of replaced the the one below.
Okay, you're going to be providing us with new language anyway, so
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody has a big problem with this in general, but I think that's trying to hit a pretty high bar. That's why the points are
Right.
high.
Totally.
And then number 6 got tweaked a little bit. And any thoughts on this? And again, this is very similar to what we just talked about. And it may be that
Now,
one
would
may
be-
actually be moot at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, are these moot?
Well, that's a
because
less
they're-
than. So that's pretty much taken everything. The
Yeah, we might drop.
Oh, that's the less than. Okay, sorry. So the other one, okay. And then
Yeah,
because we're adding it to the special permit, does that mean we don't need it in the one above, or we still need it here because this supersedes that?
The one above would be, it doesn't really get into size, and it's a higher standard, I think, overall. So
Okay, cool.
And then this one down here, you might have to drop this number again based on what you just talked about with that the last I can't remember now. It's been a half an hour. I can't remember. If we settled on, was it 8,000 square feet? Did we?
I don't
I
think
don't
we
think- I
settled.
don't think we- yeah, we don't think we.
I think it was let's pull some examples and see
Okay. So I think this number matches up with whatever
the
number
special
you
permit.
settle on with the other one. Yeah, and we're getting closer to the end here. So some different requirements, another one related to stormwater. And I think I took this from, borrowed it from New Haven, who had similar standards and a similar point system. So I took that one, which I thought was a pretty good one to say if you, again, this might be something we want to double check with the DPW standards on to make sure we're not giving them something they already have to do. I'll confirm that. But I think that's the idea, is to kind of increase a stormwater retention. And there was something else, and we had talked about sustainability back in, I think it was June, related to battery storage, which I thought was a neat concept. I don't know how applicable it will be in East Norwalk just based on the site size, but I'd like to look at a little language with that. I think that's an interesting option to have that in there as something that could benefit everybody if they had, sites, even though I have a typo there, even though they have smaller sites, maybe there's opportunities to have some battery storage where they can, provide power back into the area if and when it was ever needed. And I think this was maybe Anna's suggestion about the EV chargers being eligible for some points. If they do a level 3 charger versus, what we typically see is a level 2 charger.
I don't remember making that suggestion. I don't know how well thought out it was. I mean, quite honestly, like I'm not an expert on EV chargers. In my mind, 3 is better than 2, so it seems like something that might be good for the amenity bonus points. But I'm also aware that I don't have electronic vehicle and don't build buildings. You ran this idea by people who know what
the
they're
only
talking about,
things-
right?
Aren't they for different kinds of cars? Some cars requires,
no,
No, you can have
an
adapters on
EV3
it.
is a fast charger.
My thing here is that the developer can put it in and charge for it. It's not really like there's no public utility here other than it's a place where I can charge, not that I'm getting anything for it. Right? Because they'll charge for it. So it's literally akin to putting a gas station in front of their building, in a way, shape, or form.
But
Well, this probably would not be public. This would probably be private within their development.
Right.
I think the
Oh,
requirement we talked
we're
about
in
just
that
requirements
section.
being
Sorry.
2,
Sorry, I thought we were in the
and this
still
would bump
public,
it up to 3.
Oh, But then I'm in sync with this. Sorry.
I would just did somebody who knows more about this stuff looked at this, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've sent it out to, we just talked about it a little bit with Steve, but again, up for discussion, all these, as they all are.
Steve, unfortunately, it's probably not in our bailiwick. But there is the question of what people charge for electricity at these public charging stations. Is there a requirement, for example, to indicate what the charge is? You know, how much does it cost per kilowatt hour? So in the same way that when people buy gasoline, they know what they're paying per gallon.
You know that when you plug in, though. Your car should tell you.
Pardon me?
Your car should tell you what is being charged
Okay.
when you plug in.
Yeah, if it's level 3 just for residents, I can see that being useful maybe for some residents who need a very quick charge. But my understanding is with level 3, you're using it mostly on like road trips, or if you need to charge up your car in like 20 or 30 minutes, from 20 to 80%. Like, it's not terribly often people are using this except for road trips. And so this might be good on like our Route 1 corridor, for example, and maybe in a like mixed use development. But I would think in the residential context that we'd want to encourage maybe more level 2 availability, so that way more residents feel inclined to use electric cars. But that charge could happen over the course of, say, 4 or 8 hours instead of over 20, 30 minutes. Feel free to fact check me for anyone who has more charging experience. I charged for the first time this past weekend, so.
So maybe this should be
Congratulations.
specified for public
Yeah,
use.
that's what I was going to suggest.
But also running it by an expert.
Yeah, I think how Chapin said it was
Please.
right. If I'm a resident, level 2 is going to fit my needs because I'll be parked there probably overnight and can charge my car. But if I'm someone from the public and I'm shopping at a shop on the first floor, probably I have a half hour to an hour, and that gets me a full charge.
Then with the rain gardens, we just added a requirement that they anything with the public art had to be viewable from the public, because we had that pop up with one of the Van Zandt applications where some of the stuff was not visible and not accessible, so kind of like defeated part of the purpose of things. And this number is bound to change for the rooftop solar just based on what we talked about earlier with the 25,000 square feet possibly dropping down. So we'll have to look at that.
Same with the green roof above it, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe, I'm not sure if Ms. Wells had recommended we look at the same, the standards be applicable. So yeah, I would think so.
Steve, just a question on the green roof. If that looks like grass, how does that be kept alive? I've seen green roofs before, but they're more like succulent gardens and whatnot.
Yeah, so they have their own, I don't know what the requirements are in terms of, if you're in a drought, do they have to be irrigated? That's a good question. I'm not positive about that, but they're meant to be like a living roof, not just like, as opposed to a potted or raised beds.
Yeah, they're self-sustaining.
They're meant to absorb water, retain storm water. That's kind of the intent.
Okay.
ELM in Stanford is implementing that.
Who is?
Sorry, Hector, I couldn't.
ELM, Eastern, no, it's a maintenance company in Stanford, ELM.
Building Land Technology, is that what you mean, BLT?
It's a company that does maintenance, and they do all of the setups for the, like all the green spaces in Stanford for the town and for private, and they've started doing that. I can send you some information tomorrow because I am connected with one of the persons from the company, and they were sending me what they are setting up.
Okay.
All right, Steve, let's move on.
The last one, we came up with, if they do provide additional workforce housing units, you get 2 points for every additional 5% of additional workforce units you provide, with a maximum available of 4 points. So if they did another 10%, they could get 4 points.
How are we going to measure that last one?
No,
Be part of their affordable housing plan.
yeah. So say they're building 20 units.
Mhm.
They have to provide, the regulations require that they provide 2 workforce units. If they provide 4 workforce units, then they can get 4 points.
Do we want to make that at a lower AMI than the workforce units? Or is that too complicated?
That adds a little bit of complexity to it. I mean, it's an option. I think the more
Complicated, the less we're going to get.
yeah, or the more stringent the requirement, the less you're going to get.
That's fair.
I would
And
think
with the understanding that after the results of the affordable housing study come out, we can reopen this if it seems to make sense to reduce the SMI, right?
Yeah, I think that will get reflected in the broader workforce housing regulations, and this is something we can easily discuss with them too. And maybe because if they identify that there's a which I'm sure they will, there's going to be a need for affordability below 60% SMI, for example. You could always you could add another category in there where you get different points for providing, so you have 2 options here, one as it's written, or you have another one for if you provide 5% of the units at 50% SMI, you get points, or something. You have different options you could play with under that category.
somehow that number of 4, if we're trying to encourage more affordable housing, would seem low. Like,
Well, it's only 5, but you can go up. You can get more, right? Oh, that's total maximum of 4. So 2 points for every 5%. So you get
like why do we need a maximum?
Well, because we require people to get I think a set of the sustainability out, so you can't do all of it via workforce housing increases.
Okay.
well,
Yeah, I mean, you won't get some of the. It's trying to strike a balance between, there's the sustainability requirement, that's a certain percent, and there's also trying to get that immediate public benefit as well as like the plazas and the nice spaces. But again, these numbers can all be tweaked and modified to move it up however you feel is appropriate.
okay.
Speaking of looking for the things that are more of the immediate public benefit, I know I wasn't involved when the whole amenity idea first came up, so I'm sure you guys have talked through all the options before, and I'm sort of disappointed that the response from ENNA didn't come in early enough for us to see that as part of this discussion. One idea I had, which tell me if it's stupid, is having bonus points for public restroom access, particularly with, changing stations. I think in general, in terms of walkability and activating street use, access to public restrooms is something that's come up before. Obviously, it's not required. It's an amenity bonus. But I think that helps a community as well. And some of these places, they're going to have restaurants, but some of these places won't.
Yeah, I think that could be. I'm trying to think of what an appropriate point would be, but public accessible.
Is it a number 1 or a number 2, Steve? Number 1 or a number 2?
It's not a sustainability item. Is that what you're asking? Or
No, I was making a really bad joke about bathrooms and 1s and 2s.
All right, now I got you.
All right, I'd like to see that gentleman muted for the rest of the meeting.
Here.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
By the way, it's 7:55. I'm perfectly willing to go another half hour or so in order to cover everything we have on the agenda. Is everyone else comfortable with that, running until 8:30?
Unfortunately, I have to
Yes.
log off.
Okay.
It may go a little longer than that, Mr. Chairman, if we get, it won't go that much longer, I promise.
I can't go another half hour. I'm just exhausted personally.
From last night?
Yes.
All right, well, let's keep pushing forward.
So just, I want to just complete this. I know, Mr. Batchnick just mentioned the publicly accessible restroom. Would you want to add that as an amenity that's eligible for points? That's pretty easy to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, but do
That's
it.
my thought.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anybody have any idea on the point value for that? I could think about it. I haven't seen that anywhere where I can reference what anybody else has done, so.
I know Nick was kidding, but I think 1 or 2 is a good value for that.
I think higher, you're asking a building to maintenance a restroom. I mean, the 6th taxing district has public bathrooms at 3 of our properties. And it's a lot of work to maintain public bathrooms. It's not something that you take lightly. And there's issues that come with public bathrooms. So I would give it a lot more than 1 point. But
the only tricky thing with that, if it's a mixed use building and say they have a cafe or something, technically they've already got sort of a public restroom if it's got like indoor outdoor access. So
No, but typically restaurants limit the use of the restroom to people who are using the restaurant.
right.
I was thinking that they could even make like the restroom in their leasing office, for example, accessible to the
Right.
public. You know, something that's already maintained. And I don't think it needs to be a 24/7 restroom, but you know, one that's open most hours.
Well, it becomes a security issue.
It has it, yeah.
Yeah, but they have to tell people it's open to the public. You know, if it's in the leasing office, I don't think the public would realize that they can go in and use the bathroom.
Well, the same way we require signage for the other public spaces to make it clear that it's not restricted to residents. I mean, just, you know, you get whatever it is, whatever Tammy thinks. 3 points or 4 points for one gender neutral, accessible bathroom with a changing station that's available to the public during the hours that the commercial businesses are open.
I think it's a great idea.
Sounds like good language too.
was that 3 points?
3.
Right. All right.
Whatever Tammy thinks is best.
3 sounds good.
Okay. What's
Per
the next?
toilet.
That's fine.
3 points per toilet.
Oh, let's not complicate the issue.